Welcome, everyone. I am John Ryan of the Predictive Playbook, and I am very, very pleased to be doing this show with my good friends and pals and experts in the sports industry, Rudy Reyes of iHeartRadio and the Rude Dog Show, and Alexander of the Pointsville app. And if you haven't downloaded the Pointsville app yet, go to the Apple Store, which I know you know how to do, and type in Pointsville and download it, and I know you're going to love it. How's everything going? Let's start with Rudy here and tell us what's going on this week. It's a pretty big week. I think there's some holiday coming up Sunday night.
I've heard of it. It comes one time a year, and no, Christmas already passed. So you can
Groundhog Day.
Another holiday and throw it out the window because we are now facing a New Year's Eve to New Year's Day, and not only here in Southern California or Central Valley, but everywhere. Imagine that, everywhere. So lots of good stuff. Of course, you have the Rose Bowl that's going to be partaken down in Southern California in Pasadena. Always a great segue into college sports and what that looks like for the following season now that the Pac-12 is all but over with. And of course, we'll probably talk about that at another point, another show. But otherwise, good stuff going on in New Year's. And just a sidebar, I did acquire a puppy dog. It's an Australian Shepherd. You may have seen it on Instagram. Beautiful markings. It looks like she was brush stroked the night before I picked her up. She's absolutely fabulous, and a handful at the same time.
That's awesome.
Aussie.
How about you, Alexander? What's new?
Well, first off, that's a winner, Rudy. I have a Yorkie at home. Absolutely love dog.
Must love dog.
Yeah. So aside from some fun stuff, we have cooking at Pointsville, which won't talk about much, but we are onboarding a few more baseball teams with the loyalty focused on Major League Baseball right now for various reasons. We really want to get that down and be the only show in town for that. So we're basically making major strides, publish some information on that. But I'm excited to do what my passion is, which is sports along with numbers. So excited to be talking about the NFL with you guys. My Eagles have been very frustrating as of late, but they pulled off the W when it counted, even though it's disgusting against one of the worst teams in the league. I think there's actually a few bright spots, and I think the fan base is a little too spoiled. They were 10-1 a few weeks ago, so kind of the expectancy is, you should go 17-0 and win the Super Bowl, and anything else is unacceptable. But good teams have bad streaks. Bad teams have good streaks. As we saw with baseball, with the Oakland A's, the Phillies last year. Even the Niners lost 3 in a row early in the year and then had a terrible game. Brock Purdy, the next Tom Brady, had probably the worst game of his career. So excited to talk about some. We're at that point where every game counts for the teams in the playoff race. So some games I think are not being hyped up as big games. I think are big games. I think there are playoff implications, and I think you've got some teams that want to be the spoiler, ruin their divisional rivals' chances. So, as a fan, very excited for some exciting football this weekend.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, and I bet you Alexander is going to be a big fan of those Detroit Lions on Saturday. I had somebody ask me if the Eagles could clinch if Detroit won. The answer is absolutely no, but close. I don't think the Eagles are going to lose to the Cardinals. In fact, that's a game that I don't think we're really going to talk about on this show unless somebody in the chat room wants us to. I personally, my take on the Eagles is that, guys, fans of the Eagles, you're going to be fine. What it comes down to in the playoffs is two simple things. You have both of them. You have the ability to do both of them. You have a ground game, and you also have to manage the ball. You have to take care of the ball. Turnovers, if you lose a turnover margin in a playoff game, you're probably going to lose the game. If you score 27 or more points in a playoff game, which the Eagles average, you win playoff games. So I've listened to WIP, and I can listen to it about 7 minutes max. You can certainly listen to this show a lot longer. But it gets so toxic. And I developed this Twitter app that actually goes into Twitter in the back end and does a sentiment analysis. It's something I learned at MIT, believe it or not, and that's not to impress anybody, but it works. And the sentiment going into that Giants game last week was the lowest in since I've been doing it of any team of the fan base. But when this happens, it becomes a buying opportunity for that team, in this case being the Eagles. Conversely, when the Eagle fan base is saying that the Super Bowl is ours and it's only week 4, then that becomes kind of a selling opportunity. But let's get to Detroit and Dallas here. And then we'll bring on Barry after this for the Ravens, because I know he is very interested in talking about how great the Ravens are, I believe, or he's going to be fading them. But anyway, we'll find that out in just a few minutes. Detroit, 11-4, tied with the 49ers and the Eagles for the top record in the conference. They're taking on Dallas, 10-5. Total is pretty lofty, guys, 53. We haven't seen many in the 50s in a while here. Dallas is favored by 6, but it was higher. Let's see. Looking down here at the other stats here, Detroit is on a 2-game winning streak. They've won 3 out of 4. They've covered the spread in 3 out of 4. They've gone over the total in 3 of their last 4. They have gained more than 100 rushing yards in 7 consecutive games. I'm impressed by that. They allowed 17 rushing yards in their win at Minnesota last week. That's back-to-back weeks with allowing fewer than 100 yards. And they haven't allowed more than 142 in the last 6 weeks. Dallas is a great offense at home, guys. They average about 40 points a game, but on the road, they are mediocre at best. There's a big Jekyll and Hyde type of offense. At home, they rock. But I think, the wins that Dallas has had are not all that impressive, despite the fact that they have such a great offense. And I think Detroit would give them a world of trouble. Let's start with Rudy here and see what he has on this game, and if the upset is in his mind too.
You know what? The Detroit Lions have been the surprise of the year, in my opinion. They're not getting enough conversations. There's not enough people talking about what they've done with Dan Campbell, under Dan Campbell, and alongside Dan Campbell. Don't forget, he was a part of that team that went 0-16. So Dan Campbell is familiar with losing. He's just tired of losing, and that's why this Detroit Lions team is winning right now. You have the ball turnover margin, and you score with those opportunities like Detroit did against Minnesota, you're going to win every single game. There's no doubt about that. As far as where the Philadelphia Eagles lie in that, it's tough. It's hard to come back from pegging Santa Claus with snowballs, but talk about a snowball going down. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, who are absolutely atrocious on the road against the Dolphins on Christmas Eve, 22-20. The Bills just decimated them the week prior to that, 31-10. They're just horrible away from home. I don't understand it. Maybe it's a condition situation from a weather standpoint. I don't know. But the Dallas Cowboys are on the outside looking in, as far as I'm concerned, within the overall totality of the NFC. And more importantly, they actually go into this game as a 6-point favorite over Detroit, happening a day before New Year's Eve, for those that believe in that kind of thing. This is going to be a very interesting game. I think the Cowboys are the third best team in the NFC, and to win the title is certainly up in the air. They have odds of 1,000, I believe. And of course, a lot of sports books are giving Lions an under 325 to advance on into the postseason, and then even larger margin than that at plus 1720 to win the Super Bowl. So you look, the Dallas Cowboys have their work cut out for them. I don't care what the analytics say. One thing about the Detroit Lions, they know how to create turnovers, but on the offensive side of the ball, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have a line of guys who just continually do what they need to do, and they've been doing it all season long. Dan Campbell is reflectant of how these guys play, of how they're able to formulate what they're going to do on a down-by-down basis. From a schematic standpoint, defensively for Detroit, it's pound, 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 stop the line, close the A-gaps, play excellent secondary work. At times, they're kind of sleepers in that regard, but for the most part, up front, they've just been lights out. And, of course, people that don't know this, AJ Hawkins, not AJ Hawkins, but Hackenberg is out for Minnesota for obviously the remainder of the season. Of course, that comes down to just the 2 last games upcoming. But look, the Detroit Lions are 11-4, and the Dallas Cowboys are 10-5. So when you look at the favorable margins, it favors Dallas. But if I'm betting with pizza money and some extra salami, and maybe some cheesy crust, I'm going with Detroit. Not to be cheesy, but to make it easy, because the Detroit Lions are not going to make it easy on Dallas in this game.
Love the poetry, but I'm going to make it easy for you guys. You asked about the analytics, and before we get to Alexander, here's my take on it. I think Detroit's going to win this game outright. We're going to bet on underdogs 3.5 to 9.5 points. The dog committed no more than 1 turnover in the previous game, and they're playing against a favorite that has gone 2 consecutive games where they have forced no turnovers, and that has been a problem with the Dallas defenses. They're not getting those forced turnovers and getting short fields for that offense to score. So that set of parameters right there has gone 18-21 straight up. So that's, keep in mind, you're talking about a 6-point dog, which is about plus 280, plus 300 on the money line, 3-1. But against the spread, 30-8 with 1 push, 79% last 10 years. There's more. If a non-divisional matchup, these dogs, 13-11 straight up, 54%, 19-5 against the number, 79%, and including 15-8-1 under for 65%. So can you imagine if all of a sudden this powerful offense gets kind of shut down by Lions and the Lions win? I'm there. What do you think, Alexander? Oh, wait.
You're muted.
Yep, hold on.
Sorry.
My bad.
Certainly can't drop the beats that Rudy is doing. But my view is simple, and I do think the Lions have been a pleasant surprise this year. I was overly critical of them early in the year. They are a great team. I think the Cowboys are 2 different teams. It depends on who shows up. They're very good at home, and I think the most likely outcome is that they win this game and they dominate Detroit, win by 2 scores. That being said, Detroit could surprise us even further. Probably they are motivated. They could still win the number 1 seed. In fact, really, ironically, as an Eagles fan, I'm actually rooting for Dallas in this game because I think the Eagles win out against the Cardinals and the Giants. Cardinals who beat the Cowboys on the road, in Arizona by 2 scores. So Dallas is a terrible team on the road, honestly, or at least a mediocre team. The Eagles beat them in Philly. They destroyed Philly in Dallas. So I think Dallas wins. I think they win against the spread, and they continue their home dominance. But the Eagles win the division, and if they have to face the Eagles, it's going to be in Philly. And I think they can win a road win in the playoffs against Tampa, but not anywhere else. That's my take on it.
I would agree.
I think they wouldn't win in Detroit, but I think they win in Dallas. So this game's in Dallas.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think they will. But look, the Cowboys have been on a 2-game losing streak. It hasn't happened since last season. Of course, when you think of the Dallas Cowboys, you think of Micah Parsons, a guy, a sideline to sideline kind of guy. He's very likable. He's very friendly. But he's not friendly against opposing quarterbacks by any means. He's created a lot of stop opportunities, a lot of 3-and-outs so far throughout the regular season. And he's looking to really pour this on a very talented and very solid offensive line that's guarding for Jared Goff, who is coming into his own. I don't believe he was quite there with the Rams, but I think that he's certainly making a name for himself in the Detroit Lions organization. And I truly believe he'll end up getting a little bit higher payday next year as the NFL draft starts rolling around, saying, you are our guy. You helped get us here. We're here because of you. And of course, all the other moving parts associated with it. With that being said, Cowboys, because of Micah Parsons, have one of the best pass rushing teams in the NFL throughout any given game, regardless of whether they're on the losing end against the Bills or if they're on a winning end and they're playing anyone at home. The problem is that Dak Prescott is reared his ugly head at times against the rush, and one of those things where he just throws the ball thinking he's throwing it away, but instead He's throwing it away into another corner's hands. And that's not really helping the Dallas Cowboys at all when you get behind based on those turnovers. We found that out against what Brock Purdy had accomplished, or lack thereof, against the Baltimore Ravens, trying to accomplish completions, but yet turn it over 4 times. So I think the real Dak Prescott may show up at times throughout this game against Detroit. But I'm still taking Detroit on this one. It's going to be a slim margin, and I give this a field goal separation at birth between these two teams. But I think Detroit ends up winning this one.
Yeah, and Dallas definitely. I mean, yeah, winning against the spread makes sense too. Could happen. Dallas is a monster of a kicker, by the way, just a beast.
Yep. Well, bringing on Barry Long here, and I'm going to tee this game up for him because he wanted to talk about the Ravens. And who doesn't want to talk about the Ravens after what they did last week in San Francisco? They are on a 5-game winning streak. They have covered the spread in 4 out of 5. They are the new darlings to win the Super Bowl, and who can blame anybody for saying that right now? But as we know in the NFL, and I hate to keep saying it, but it's not for long, and especially this year, where both conferences only have 5 teams that are eliminated from the playoffs. So we have basically 12 teams competing with a mathematical shot at minimum to make a playoff. And that is parity. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Miami is going to bring the load for this game. They also have won 4 out of 5, covered 4 out of 5, and have gone over 3 out of 5, but gone under because their defense has been showing up the last 2 games. Granted, it was against the Jets, but they held Dallas to 91 rushing yards in a 22-20 win. I was very lucky that I had the -1.5 and not 2. But nevertheless, we'll take the half-point win. Miami's offense is very, very consistent. It's not like the Dallas Cowboys, for example, that score 40 at home and then 20 on the road. So I think Miami is still a dangerous team. It'll be interesting to see if Miami can do the same thing that Baltimore did and upset Baltimore after they went out west to San Francisco and pulled off the upset. This wouldn't be really much of an upset because Miami is a slight, modest favorite. But let's start with Barry here and see what he has to inform us with on this matchup on Sunday.
First and foremost, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so I just want to first and foremost say, happy holidays to you guys. Was your Christmas merry?
As merry as it could be.
My Christmas was as berry as it could be. Berry Christmas, berry belated Christmas to everyone. I'm sorry for showing up fashionably late, like everyone else showed up fashionably late to the Ravens being the best team in the NFL. I'm sorry that I'm wearing sunglasses. These are hater blockers. And also the GOAT hat is for Lamar Jackson, because everyone said he was leaving Baltimore and everyone said that he's stupid for negotiating his own contract. He is stupid for negotiating his own contract because he could have got more with the way he's playing right now. But what I'm going to say is that with all this, the GOAT hat, the sunglasses, the fashionably late, we are humble in Baltimore, and it is the most beautiful that I've ever seen our defense play. I mean, we are on all 3 levels. We have the best linebacking core in the NFL, which I've been saying for a long time. I've been saying Patrick Queen is going to step up soon as we got Roquan Smith. Patrick Queen was already ready, but when Roquan came in, it's almost like when you're at a job and then you're the only female at a job, and then all of a sudden, you're at Home Depot or you're at Lowe's or you're at some construction site, and then another female walks in, you're like, girl, you look at old girl, you're like, girl, we about to do this thing. That's what Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith have done, and they are literally the best linebacking core in the league. And I've been telling people about Patrick Queen, and everybody's just had to wait and see. And I'm excited about all the other teams that are in the NFL, and I know that the Eagles are coming. And don't get discouraged if you're an Eagles fan and you guys have lost a few games, or you're a 49ers game because y'all went on a 3-game losing streak if you're a 49ers fan, or if you're any other team. Honestly, I just want everyone to just be humble, because the Ravens have the hardest time being humble. And, I'm just going to say this. The team that scares me the most is the Cleveland Browns, because Joe Flacco, that's my quarterback. And we won a Super Bowl with him. He had a historic run. To this day, he is the NFL quarterback leader of all time with road playoff wins. So he got 6 road playoff wins. I hope it's not 7 because he's going to have to come to Baltimore. And if Joe Flacco shows up, he's going to beat us. That's how I honestly feel. But what I will tell you right now is that I am so happy for the 49ers, and I think the 49ers are one of the best teams in the league. But nobody has been talking about the Baltimore Ravens enough, and nobody has mentioned them enough. And when I saw the defense dominate that offense in the way Brock Purdy did not come out of the game early because Brock Purdy felt he was hurt and injured are 2 different things. He was hurt. Okay. When you coach youth football, a kid come off the field and he's like, oh, like one of the most beautiful questions you can ask a youth football player is like, are you hurt or are you injured? Injured means, bro, I'm so hurt that I can't play. Hurt means I might be butt hurt, my leg hurt, my butt hurt, but my confidence and my feelings hurt. So I'm done. And Brock Purdy throwing 4 interceptions was an anomaly. We saw him throw 3 and we were shocked. And I'm not saying Brock Purdy's not a great quarterback or he's not going to be a great quarterback. What I'm saying is that we saw the difference between turkey and tofurkey. Have you guys ever tried tofurkey? That you guys never tried?
It doesn't even sound appealing, man. I just can't.
Tofurkey is tofu and turkey mix. Okay,
I'm gonna pass.
Are you a turkey
with a
guy?
glass of milk.
It's the
more
difference
like
between
a vat of milk. I can't even think of even putting my tongue on that texture of what that is. But you know what? You're right.
So
are
we all ready to say? Are we the best team in the NFL? Like not just the AFC or just the AFC North?
You know what? You guys
other than the Buffalo Bills.
The defense? The Bills?
I had to say it. I think the Buffalo Bills are the most dangerous team in all of football right now.
They're dangerous.
And they didn't look good last week, but they won. And they actually still have a chance to catch Miami. If
They're
Miami
dangerous.
lose, Buffalo wins. That game next next week is for all the marbles of the AFC East. And that would put Buffalo in a pretty interesting spot going into the playoffs. So I think the way they're playing, as tough as they're playing right now, is probably the nemesis for the Ravens. And I personally have already bet the Bills 2 weeks ago to win the AFC when they were 1 game under 500 at that point.
And the Bills are playing well, and I'm excited for the Bills fan base. And like they were on the brink of not even making the playoffs, and now they're going to make the playoffs. And like in my opinion, it's a given that they're going to make the playoffs. But the same way that the 49ers, everybody said the 49ers are an unbeatable team. They just had a 3-game losing streak where they got caught in a rut, kind of like the Eagles. And the Eagles and 49ers are still great teams. But when you go from the East Coast to the West Coast, there's jet lag involved, okay? And when you go in a short span of time, or you go from the West Coast to the East Coast, most teams expect to have a fall off from their normal performance because of the jet lag. But at the same time, everyone said that the 49ers are the best team clear cut. And I'm not saying that they had an off game. I'm saying that they saw an opponent that they probably won't see in the NFL Super Bowl, because there's a blueprint on how to beat the 49ers that's out there, and it's set. And shout out to the Ravens for setting that, and the Eagles will benefit from that. But there is a let's not miss the fact that the Ravens went to the West Coast and then dominated on the road. And Lamar Jackson, that's basically a playoff game. He's 1-3 in the playoffs. But that, to me, I looked at my son. He's a Ravens fan. He's 12. He don't remember. He was 3 when we won the Super Bowl. And every year he's been watching the Ravens and Lamar Jackson struggle in the playoffs. And I've been telling him, I said, look, man, every year we lose, that's just one more little nugget that you have in your ribs that you will remember when they finally win it. And I told him this is going to be beautiful when they finally get it together. But the team around Lamar Jackson is so incredible that I dare I say it, I don't want to say it, but if Lamar Jackson is not the quarterback of the Ravens, then that's the only way that we do not win the AFC. And I'm sorry, Rudy, and I'm sorry to the Dolphins fans. And the Dolphins fans will see how dominant they are. And Lamar Jackson is from Miami, so you don't think that he wants to beat his hometown team? Like, I'm not the GOAT, and this is not alcohol in this red cup. This is water. I'm not the GOAT. The GOAT is Lamar Jackson. And can we officially say that? I'm sorry. I land my plane right there.
Okay.
I have one question for you guys. We talked about the 49ers 3-game losing streak. How many Super Bowl champions in the last 20 years have there been that experienced a 3-game losing streak during the regular season? We'll go around the table. Rudy, how many have won the Super Bowl with a 3-game losing streak?
Many. The Steelers have done it. There are lots of teams that have ended up in the Super Bowl with 3 losses. Look, the Philadelphia Eagles.
No. 3 consecutive losses.
3 consecutive losses? None.
Yep. 3 consecutive losses during the regular season. How many teams went on to win the Super Bowl?
Should be.
I don't know of any. I know about the Dallas Cowboys starting 0-2 in 93, their second Super Bowl, that they lost to the Bills. They're 0-2, and then they went on to blow the Bills out their second consecutive Super Bowl.
Like
I
55
don't know of any
or
others.
something. The answer is 0.
Yeah, with 0.
No team during the regular season that had a 3 or more game losing streak has ever won the Super Bowl in the last 20. I don't think it's ever been done. So if you think about this and you believe history is not going to change, that kind of eliminates 2 of the big boys we're talking about in the Eagles and the 49ers. And that would be pretty wild to see some team that we're not talking about at the NFC go to the Super Bowl, like an LA Rams, perhaps, long shot. I think the playoffs are going to be kind of nuts. But anyway, Alexander, let's move to your thoughts on this Miami-Baltimore game. I'm obviously liking Miami in this situation. What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's hard to argue against Baltimore's dominance. They're incredible right now. But as happened to the 49ers and the Eagles, great teams can slip a bit. So Miami's shown flashes of being utterly amazing with 70 points in the board against Denver, with a team that turned out to be not that terrible, almost competitive. And then the Eagles, in spite of themselves, only dominated 2 games all year. They won by 2 scores. Tampa Bay, which I saw here in Tampa, and against the Dolphins. So teams have 2 faces. I'm liking Baltimore. But yeah, if Miami can, Miami has to win this game, right? To win the division. So this is one of those games that has playoff implications that could be difference between home field advantage or not. So they're motivated, and they can get it together. They have a chance.
What do
Nobody
you think,
figured out the 49ers blueprint, but maybe they could be the ones to figure out the Ravens blueprint. We'll see.
In the NFC, in totality, the 49ers were the creme de la creme until they got the wax beat out of them by the Baltimore Ravens at home, which is not something that they're accustomed to. They're not a comeback from behind kind of team. They're not wired that way. They're not set that way. Brock Purdy was not drafted for that reason. So they have to find a way to win. Now, as far as Baltimore is concerned, they have maybe a 12% chance to win the next Super Bowl. And of course, their odds are somewhat very good to do that. But I mean, formidably, when you look at the AFC in totality, Buffalo Bills have almost an 8% chance of winning the Super Bowl, but do have almost a 70% chance of making the playoffs. And as far as the Ravens are concerned, a matter of fact, I called in to NFL radio on Sirius XM, and I had a conversation with one of the guys there in regards to what Lamar Jackson should actually get from a monetary standpoint. And I know he didn't get as much as he could have, but he bet on himself, and that's exactly what he said, and that's exactly what he did, and that's where he's at right now because he's betting on himself. I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I always have been. I probably always will be. I interviewed him when he was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in person at the 2018 NFL Draft, and a guy that I look forward to, do a lot greater things. On the other side of that coin, Ravens are by far the strongest component of that Baltimore Ravens team. They know how to get to whoever is going to be throwing the ball, regardless of the quarterback. They know how to break through lines and offensive guards and tackles. They know how to do very good things between Kyle Hamilton and the secondary. They've just been playing lights out in a lot of ways. And I take nothing away from Baltimore, especially since my team's traveling to Seattle. The Steelers are taking on the Seahawks in a very unfamiliar area with an unfamiliar team that they don't predominantly play. And the last time they played them was in the Super Bowl, which they won. With that being said, this is a very different time, very different place. And I think Baltimore is also on an uphill battle in regards to what they're going to do and how they're going to do it against the Dolphins. The Dolphins on the offensive side of the ball has more weapons than they can count. Hopefully Tyreek Hill will get off of whatever minor injury list that he's on and become an active participant moving forward for the Miami Dolphins. If he does, this could be a very dangerous team. But one thing that Tua does not like, and that is pressure. And that's one of those things that you see throughout the regular season. With pressure, he throws errant balls into the secondary. And to your point, Alex Vale, San Francisco versus Buffalo, it's a very interesting complementary game. And I think maybe even San Francisco or Baltimore could be a revisit of a Super Bowl not that long ago where we've seen the Ravens actually win their first title. I don't know where this lies. There's still tons of football to be played. I mean, you have teams that are still currently in the NFC that are they're on the outside looking in, but they still have playoff implications between the Vikings, Falcons, Packers, Saints, and Bears. And then in the wild card, you have the Seahawks. This is a must win for Seattle against Pittsburgh, whether it's an interconference game or not, is of no consequence. And you have the Rams at 8-7. They're always chomping at the bit. Their last 2 wins are fabulous, and they own the tiebreaker over Seattle. Cowboys already clinched the playoff berth, so we're not worried about them. I'm more concerned in the NFC South if I was Tampa Bay, because the Buccaneers, even though they're basically treading their own water, do they win out the NFC South? And my answer is yes, under Baker Mayfield. Yes, I said, I can't believe I'm saying it, but yes, under Baker Mayfield, I believe that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will get it done because they have. They've done it all season long. I'm concerned about the Eagles, though. They could be a one-and-done type of situation because of a couple of reasons. The turnover margin, playing a horrible team, and basically got decimated at the last possible moment in the secondary by a very horrible and replaced coach in LA. So it's hard for me to buy into the Eagles right now. They would need to win their last 2 to make me a believer that they have a chance of going deep in the playoffs instead of being one and done. But I do see the Cowboys as being a one and done team, especially in the playoffs, despite them being so good with CeeDee Lamb and other guys who just need to step up and know how to do it on the offensive side of the ball for Dallas. As far as my team's concerned, they need a lot of help. And I mean help from everybody within the AFC. The Browns are 10-5. You mentioned that earlier, Barry. Joe Flacco knows how to beat Baltimore. He was their quarterback. They drafted him, and he led them to a Super Bowl. You can't really say much more than that. And the fact that he has a ring and the only backup quarterback, not that this isn't the year for backup quarterbacks, because we all know that it is.
He ain't no backup, bro. Like that's my core. You know how T.O. was like, that's my quarterback. That's my quarterback. and he did not come on
he was the Eagles' backup 2 years ago.
He's been a backup. He's been a backup. But if you want to call him backup, call him backup.
I'd like him back. I'd like him back.
I like him back.
Honestly, if there's a scenario in which we face the Browns and Joe Flacco has to go to Baltimore, it is a wrap for everything that I'm talking about right now. But seriously,
I don't know about that, Barry.
Joe
because
Flacco
defense for Baltimore has been playing lights out. They've been getting after everybody inside and outside. It doesn't matter where these guys are lined up. They just know how to ball. They know how to create turnovers and score points with Lamar Jackson on the other side of the ball.
And the thing about the defense is that we have guys that were low risk, high reward guys like Jadeveon Clowney, like Van Noy. And these guys are literally making plays that like closers make, like Von Miller makes. And the thing about it is this is the best defense I've ever seen, including those defenses from 2001, the defense with Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. I mean, this defense from all 3 levels is one of the greatest defenses I've ever seen. And I've been telling people all season long that it's going to just be better and better for people to understand it and realize. But honestly, I think that we should all, when we look at the NFC, the Eagles, they're fine. The 49ers, they're fine. They went through a little patch, but honestly, everyone wants to talk about the Eagles losing those 5 games or winning those 5 games where the point differential or the yard differential was way off, and there's no way that you should win games when you are out yarded by another team. And then they did it on a historical level, and it wasn't like you can look at anything glass half empty, glass half full, but literally let's take a step back and understand that the reason you win close games is because you have a team like the Eagles with championship DNA, with a guy like Jalen Hurts, who has been through the worst of the worst in regards to the high school level, the college level. Go back and look at his story. It's not just Alabama and then going to Oklahoma. There's a lot more to that story than people understand. And this is the type of guy that literally is built to win close games. So I do not, if I am the Cowboys, I do not want to see them. I know the Cowboys are 7-0 at home, 3-4 on the road, and everybody's like, okay, but they did win 3 games out of those 7 games on the road. But I'm telling you, if Jalen Hurts is in the playoffs and he has to go to Dallas, he is from Texas. So they're like, never count that guy out. Never count the championship DNA that team has. And just because a team looks bad, just because the 49ers got demolished by my Ravens, do not get it twisted. They will demolish most teams in the NFC. There is any given Sunday, but let's not count out the Eagles. And I'm telling you that the blueprint is out how to beat the 49ers. I picked originally that it's going to be Ravens, 49ers. I'm picking officially, final answer, Ravens, Eagles, and I pick well, you have to tune in to find out who I pick.
I think we already know, Barry.
Yeah, I guess
think we already know.
I want to defend the Eagles here a little bit. Alexander is our resident Eagle fan, and the Eagles did win some games where they were outstatted in the box score. Pittsburgh is the one that has done it at a historical level, where their offense struggled, but they found ways to win. Now, at the college level, I think it is important when you get outstatted and you win a game and you won 3 in a row, doing it that way, you're going to get crushed eventually. With the NFL being parity, we just saw the Eagles go out to Seattle and outstat them and then give up a 92-yard drive in the final minutes and lost. So I think these trends tend to even out over the course of the season. But I'm kind of segueing into a question for Rudy here with the Steelers going out west to play Seattle as only a 3-point dog, by the way. Does Tomlin have these guys playing at a level where they can pull off the upset? Because if they do, I think they're going to be in the playoffs. Obviously, if Seattle loses, they're done.
Sure. No, absolutely. I think Mike Tomlin has found a way systematically to say, you know what, Kenny Pickett, you're injured. You're not quite there yet. We want to make sure that you're 100% healthy. If we get into the playoffs, we want you ready to go. Mason Rudolph has been the surprise, had not historically started a game since 2019 when Ben Roethlisberger went down with an injury. So it's not hard to suggest that Mike Tomlin is going to have these guys ready. They were ready. And they're going to have to be ready on the road, and they're going to have to be ready no matter where they go, whether it's at home or on the road. More than likely, they're going to be on the road. We've seen it happen in the 04-05 season when the Steelers traveled, went to Indianapolis and beat the Colts, went to Denver on the road to face the Broncos, beat the Broncos, just go on to the Super Bowl. So, anything's possible. I think Mason Rudolph himself is very happy to be in this position, knowing he's going to be the starting quarterback in this game. But one thing you have to be honest about with yourself, if you're a Steelers fan or if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, is which team is really going to show up when you need them to show up individually in game play. And more importantly, how the Steelers are going to have to keep that defense honest now that Bobby Wagner is back from LA, spending his entire season and picking up kind of where he left off last year. They have a lot of fearless guys in that secondary. You have a lot of fearless defensive backs. And you guys, and they clearly know what they have to do to get into the backfield for Pittsburgh, who's been spotty at best with unnecessary holds by guys like Dan Moore. Look, the bottom line is this: Steelers are traveling on the road. This is not an easy game. It shouldn't be taken lightly, nor at any point whatsoever should Seattle think the same of Pittsburgh, because look, they know that their playoff lives are dependent on this game, regardless of whether it's an AFC or an NFC game. It's of no consequence. So I think Mike Tomlin will have them ready to go. My bigger question is who's going to show up first? Are we going to see the Steelers whack the Seahawks just like they did against the Bengals? And by the way, they own the tiebreaker over Cincinnati at 8-7. Or somehow, in some way, shape, or form, do you find Seattle finding a way through the spirit of Geno Smith, who, honestly, in my opinion, does not deserve of any type of comeback player of the year conversation? And it's not because he missed time, but because he hasn't done a whole lot downfield with the ball. Sure, a couple passes to DK Metcalf, and those are all great and wonderful. But at the end of it all, being 8-7, when people say and suggest this is a winnable game, winnable is suggestive. It's not either way. It's saying they're winnable. That doesn't mean it's losable. Who wants to go into a game where they know they're going to lose? That doesn't quite make sense, now does it? So this is going to be a very interesting game. This is my game of the week as far as an AFC NFC matchup going head to head.
And I got some good news for you, Rudy. Little algorithm here, very simple to understand. In games played in December, bet on road teams that have failed to cover the spread in 3 of the last 4 games. 92-41, that's 69% against the numbers. So I kind of like Pittsburgh here. And, Seattle was a team, too, that outperformed expectations. But Tomlin is a guy that, I have him as a head coach. I have him up there with Belichick. He just doesn't have the rings. The guy's never had a losing season. And they've only had 3 coaches in franchise history. I mean, it's crazy how good he is.
Well, the problem is this, John. You can have a above 500 season, and that's great and wonderful. But what does that get you? They haven't been in the playoffs
an attaboy.
But let's not act like this is Marvin Lewis. Let's not act like this is Marvin Lewis. This, like, the last 3 years of Roethlisberger's tenure, Roethlisberger couldn't throw a pass over 7 yards, and he was like literally looking around like, "Yo, I know you're a legend, but you're not that guy anymore." And then he has to deal with what? Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky. Like, this guy cannot find a quarterback to save his life, and he still finds a way to not have a losing season. Put some respect on Mike Tomlin's name, who's also from my hometown of Virginia Beach.
Well, I have nothing. I have nothing against Mike Tomlin. He's done absolutely everything that he's needed to do, what he has to do, and you can make the conversation. You can actually make a solid argument to suggest that Mike Tomlin won with Bill Cowher's team. That is extremely subjective. I don't know that for a fact, but I can certainly tell you it's the mindset that 3 coaches in an organization that's been around since 1933 have not committed to 25 starters as quarterbacks or head coach carousels, unlike the Pittsburgh Steelers, who only has 3 coaches. So with that being said, Mike Tomlin is a guy I believe will get the defense to play at the level they need to. They did it against Cincinnati. And they've shown up in sporadic games, part of the 3-game losing streak. So there's no reason for me to suggest that Mike Tomlin is on his way out. I don't even know who started that nonsense conversation to begin with. Exactly.
And my question to you, Rudy, is like there are 2 legendary coaches that are historic. If that's even a cliche, but what I'm saying is that there's 2 coaches that people are talking about. They're on the hot seat. Bill Belichick and your boy Mike Tomlin. Is that even fathomable at this point? Like, honestly, they both have enough skin in the game and have enough credibility to where they deserve at least another year and a half. But Mike you can't fire those.
No.
You can't fire Mike Tomlin mid-season.
No, and that's not going to happen. As far as I know, to my understanding, from within certain webs and spaces in dark places, that Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere anytime soon. With that being said, Bill Belichick, on the other hand, that's another story, because don't forget, this is his 3rd straight losing season in New England. And Robert Kraft is kind of tired of losing because he's used to winning. But you don't have the Tom Brady's of the world there. He's had subpar quarterback play.
The same problem that Mike Tomlin's having, you cannot find a quarterback after you've had a legendary quarterback, and now all of a sudden you're on the hot seat. I mean,
well, Belichick.
Let them find a quarterback.
I don't even think that it's a real hot seat per se when you're talking about Robert Kraft and his decision-making process, whether or not he gets rid of Bill Belichick in the regular season. Don't forget, Bill Belichick is a guy who came over in a trade in New England. So anything's possible. You want to trade a guy, you could trade a guy out. And if I was any better, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I would say you get another head coach, but it's not going to be a Bill Belichick. On the other side of that token, there are other teams that could use a guy like Bill Belichick, and there's no doubt about that in my mind. And all these teams that are on the outside looking in, I can see him in DC with the Commanders. I can see him maybe in, gosh, I don't know. There's still so many teams that just absolutely are horrible right now. I could see him in Chicago, maybe a reach there. I know Eberflus is in for the 2 weeks or the 2 years rather. So, I mean, look, Bill Belichick has barely dropped off. I don't know that he's going to go anywhere, but I do know that if there's a hot seat, he's sitting probably close enough to the hot seat where he feels the heat.
Yeah, I would agree. But what's the one common denominator that we're talking about is I think there's been 59 quarterbacks to make an attempt this year. And the struggles are with the parity. And thank God we do have the parity because the league would be dominated by the rich and not dominated by the poor teams. And the big markets like LA, New York, Philly, et cetera, would dominate the league. So I'm glad that they don't have parity, but at the same time,
It'd be like baseball, yeah.
right. Well, like baseball is becoming more and more and more, I think, because we did see the Mets and the Yankees not do so well. And I was glad to see that because they spent $800 million for players that have no chemistry and they expect them to win a World Series and they didn't even play 500. That's a different show. That's actually the Pointsville MLB show.
Sure.
That's
No,
only
and
about
you're right.
62 days away.
You're absolutely right. Now,
Miami,
LA Dodgers
Miami has their starting quarterback, right?
and they
Buffalo
have
has their starting quarterback. Baltimore has their starting quarterback. Cleveland does not. The Steelers do not. Jacksonville does. Colts, no. Texans, yes. Chiefs, yes. Eagles, yes. The whole season. Dallas, Detroit. I think he was out a couple weeks, right? But it's the teams that stay the healthiest that end up in the Super Bowl, like the last 20 years, call it. So if your key people, the best people on the team, remain healthy and they're playing well, then it comes down to that, I think, in these last couple of weeks. So I could be wrong, but I think that's one of the common denominators. If you stay healthy, you're gonna win. I mean, look at San Francisco last year when they came to Philly. Purdy goes down, and who was it? Samuel went down too in the first quarter, and it was a blowout. Now, I'm not just saying one game is an injury, but if you lose those type of guys for the whole season, it would be a Joe Flacco type of year with the Baltimore Ravens to come back and go to the Super Bowl and win it. And no offense to him because he is a Super Bowl winner. Anyway, with the time remaining, just want to go around the horn, give out a best bet if you want, or a best. I know Rudy doesn't bet all that often or at all. So if you would just pick a team that you think is going to win, well, the rest of us will just consider the money line then. But just tell everybody what you're doing and anything you want to highlight.
The Bills are certainly a team that I look for making a real solid segue into the playoffs. It's certainly a winnable last two games, and I think the Bills will end up saving face behind what they have in front of them. They're probably not going to win the division, but they're going to be close. But a seriously high wild card / maybe even a co-division winner, if there's even such a thing. And the only reason why the Bills won't be the winner is because they lost against Miami. I like the Bills in this game. I'm going to have to take Josh Allen as far as an interconference game, but an out-of-conference game, I'm still staying with Pittsburgh playing against Seattle on the road against the 12th man, not too far away from downtown Seattle. So I'm going to have to take the Steelers and a 3-point upset over the Seahawks off of Chris Boswell's toe. And with that being said, that's going to really put other teams in a very shaky situation because, again, but if the Steelers lose, then that pushes the Texans up even further. That puts the Bengals back in the conversation. And don't forget the Las Vegas Raiders, who basically just decimated their last opponent. So let's not talk about the Raiders. The Raiders are still alive in this big relative playoff race, but nothing larger than the NFC playoff race. Are you joking? I mean, so many teams are on the outside, and all they have to do is just win out. The Bears, maybe Saints, maybe Packers, Falcons, Vikings. You have the hodgepodge of who's who. But as far as who's getting in and who's going in, I think the Rams find a way under Matt Stafford. They've done it before. They've been to the Super Bowl in recent memory just 2 years ago, going on 3, in fact. So I'd like the Rams to win out. And because they own the tiebreaker over Seattle, it's clearly obvious that even if they lose their last game, that they're still going to make it in the playoffs. And the Cowboys, they're going to clinch a playoff berth. But deep in the playoffs, I just don't know what that looks like. I think they could be a one and done. But overall, yeah, because I'm not a betting guy. Again, I'm going to have to take the Steelers over Seattle.
Yeah, I love it. Who's your best bet for the week, Alexander? And what else do you have going on?
I actually think the Eagles in Arizona, no one's paying attention to this game, but especially if the Rams find a way to beat the Niners, and if Dallas can beat Detroit, this is actually how they can take the number 1 seed. It's also how they can regain confidence in the fans and regain a little team confidence. There's been some lack of sync issues. If they can get it together against the Rams, beat them against the spread, 10.5-point favorites, blow them out even better, regain some confidence, and find their sync. I think that the Eagles fans can shut up and be happy. Also give them a chance. They win the division. They win the first seed. Now, if they beat Arizona by 3 points on a 61-yard field goal in the rain, after 3 consecutive penalties on Kyler Murray, and their defense tries to give it away and they somehow win anyway, I think Eagles fans are going to be rightfully pissed that they should be able to get it together. It's one thing to look sloppy in front of Buffalo, Kansas City, and San Francisco and eke out a win that looks ugly, which they obviously didn't in San Francisco, but they came out with ugly wins against great teams. And that adversity is good, finding a way to win. Buffalo, they had no business winning that game. They did anyway. Nobody kicks a 58-yard field goal in a storm, but they did. And nobody has Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes consecutively committing horrendous mistakes unexplainably, right? Or Dak Prescott, really. The Eagles were giving a 92-yard drive to him in Philly. Same like this rookie backup in Seattle. And they were trying to give away the game. 3 penalties. It was like 70 yards in 15 seconds. And then he turned around and messed it up. So the Eagles are lucky to have some of those wins. So a game against a playoff team where you basically barely win, that's okay. If they play like that against the Giants again, against Arizona, the fans have every right to be pissed because that's not sustainable in the playoffs. You can't fumble 4 times. You can't beat, a third-string quarterback by luck on the last play of the game every single week on a 5-win team. So if the Eagles can blow out Arizona by 3 touchdowns and beat their old defensive coordinator who didn't show up on the Super Bowl because he was looking for a job in Arizona, gave away a Super Bowl win, I could blame him if there's some. I mean, Jalen Hurts tried to carry the team. He almost did, despite his pick 6 in the Super Bowl. The Eagles' defense looked so bad in that game. They look better now than they did in that game. So that being said, maybe Rudy or I could try it for the secondary. Maybe we could do a better job than C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I don't know. But I do know if they can win by 3 touchdowns, they get their mojo back. And, we could still be back in the bowl.
Maybe so. And you know what? By the way, I am 6'1", so I may have some type of advantage there. Just throwing that out there.
I think you do. I think we should check. I don't know what this guy is trying to do. I mean, he was a good player last year. I don't know what's happening. I mean, they're just so bad. 3rd-string quarterbacks, rookie, just looking like Joe Montana against that secondary right now.
Well, don't forget, Mason Rudolph was also a 3rd-string quarterback, and he just shellacked Cincinnati. So, I mean, anything's possible because this is a year of the quarterback. Anything is possible.
As Chris Berman says, that's why they play the game.
That's why you play the game, and you play the game to win. You don't play the game to lose, and no team's going to be on the field with a losing mentality because that just doesn't work out. No team's going to show up on Sunday and all of a sudden not show up. And you have those times. Steelers lost to to the Cardinals also. So again, any given Sunday, anything's possible on Sunday, and sometimes even twice on Sunday. But I
The
think
Cardinals blew out the Cowboys. They beat them by 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
I can't believe it.
Week
it's
2.
possible. Again, it's just one of those things.
Nope.
It's a funky NFL season where you're
All
supposed
due
to be the teams you're supposed to win.
To Barry and his outfit, which must have taken a couple hours to put on,
at least
to prepare for our show, which we're really grateful for that he puts that kind of effort into his team and his thought. But he brought some great expertise. But I'm betting against him. I think one thing that we do forget, statistically speaking, is that the market now in recent years has overreacted to teams having to come from the East Coast to the West Coast and et cetera, West Coast to East Coast. We now have a situation where Baltimore had to go to the West Coast. They won in dramatic fashion, big time emotional win. Coming back home, and it's the same miles from Baltimore to San Francisco as it is from San Francisco to Baltimore. Now, I'm trying to be funny, but there's a point to that. That's 2 flights. It isn't just West Coast coming to the East Coast. I can show you, a couple hundred different trends where the West Coast team does better against the spread when they have to play an East Coast team. We'll save that for another show. But I think Miami's going to win this game convincingly. I think they catch Baltimore a little bit flat. But again, who knows? But it's based on this. We're going to bet against any team that's coming off a double-digit road win as a dog. So an upset win on the road by double digits. And is now, let's see, and they were a 6 or more point underdog, which they were. They closed at 6. That easy to remember set of parameters, 75% against the spread over the last 10 seasons. That's 36-12 with 1 push. So that's hard for me to get off of. And I think it's a great contrarian bet on the Dolphins this week for that exact reason. It's contrarian. It doesn't make sense, but the numbers bring sense to it, to put up some pizza money and see what happens. And humbly stated, I'm running a 28-7 against the spread record in the NFL. I honestly will never go back and check in my 29 career whether this is the best, but it's certainly one of them. And these things do come to an end, but if you want to just get some free picks from me for the weekend and go into the new year, just send me a direct message or leave a comment here on the show. And I think Rudy and Alexander would back me on this, that I, from time to time, do know what I'm doing. Sometimes it'll appear that I don't know what I'm doing, but week to week, it's a grind. You just try to make money over the course of the season. So just go around the table one more time here with what you have going on in your real jobs, what you're working on, what you want to highlight for people, where to follow you, and whatever else you want to say. We'll start with Rudy.
I thought this was a real job. Well, at least somebody told me it was. No, I'm just kidding. This is actually real fun. I really enjoy being on. Thank you, John, so much. Alex, it's a pleasure. You guys can find me on Seattle 1090 AM. And I don't mean AM as in the time. I mean, you can find me there from 6 to 7. Before that, I handle KVTA news reporting duties on iHeartRadio. So download the app, tune in if you're into the news kind of thing, and it's not sports news, but if it's news and you like it, tune in and enjoy yourself, sit down for a spin, travel wherever you want to take me, because the iHeart app will do that for you. So with that being said, you can always go on the RudeDogShow.com, check out some good stuff there. And again, appreciate it. Thanks, guys. It's always been great coming on, and look forward to doing more shows just like this.
Yeah, you got it. Good stuff there, Rudy. And Alexander, what do you have going on?
Well, in my other life, I am a Bitcoin and financial markets analyst. You can find me on Twitter. Full name Alexandre_LORES. And I've also got a sports account where I talk with John and Rudy a lot. I switched my name back, Loris_Alexandre, and do marketing work for Pointsville, marketing lead there. We're a leading loyalty company in Major League Baseball and also building out other alternative asset products. So you can find them Pointsville app on Twitter. That's where we put most of our content, and look forward to hanging out with John Ryan and Rudy next week.
Sounds good.
Sounds great to me. We're going to be starting a financial show too. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk and I have been doing one for a couple years, looking at the S&P futures and commodities and that kind of stuff. I'm going to add Alexander and Rudy, if he wants to come on and talk financials, that'd be great too. Anybody is invited, but I think we'll give you some good trading ideas. And you also see a connection to sports betting markets. You know, there's similarities between the price of Apple and the price of the Eagles this Sunday and how it's structured and how it happens in the process. So until that show actually happens, we'll end it today. And I always like reminding people, especially during the holidays, you want to try to make that big win. Don't do it. Just bet with your head, not over it, and may all the wins be yours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.